Hello and welcome to an all-new unbiased gear review. Today we are taking a look at the NK Headless. The specs of the instrument are as follows. We have what looks to be a two-piece ash body with a maple neck and a kind of flamed maple fretboard. It looks like there might also be a little sliver of some darker wood in there that I cannot find anything in the description on eBay about. So maybe rosewood? I don't know. Let's see, we've got 24 frets, a 25.5-inch scale. We have this really different KD designed bridge for headless models. And we have two Artecsound pickups with Alnico 5 magnets. Master volume with a push-pull, master tone, and a 3-way toggle switch. So first, let me give a shout out to Mr. David Morrow, who got in touch with me about this. He's like, dude, you know, I keep seeing these NK Headless guitars pop up on eBay, and I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on them. I was like, you know, honestly, I don't really know, because it is what it is. It's a low-cost, cheapy instrument that is shipping direct from China. It can go either way. I've had some experience with some great instruments, like my Hayes, that I had that came direct from China and was actually pretty amazing compared to the price point. Or it can go the opposite direction and it can be a complete and utter pile of garbage like that Starshine was. So I don't know. I've seen other videos about it, but I don't know. I can't steer you one way or another. He's like, okay, well, I'm interested enough that I want to pull the trigger on one anyway. How about I buy one, I have it sent to you, and then you can do a review, let me know what you think about it, and we can go from there. I was like, yeah, cool, sounds like a cool idea. So thank you so much, David, for giving me this opportunity to plug this thing in, check it out, do an inspection on it, and therefore give you guys a little bit more review fodder. So it is what it is. It is a cheapy instrument. There's some nice appointments on here that I think are really cool, and there's some stuff on here that I'm concerned with. So let's get right into it. Well, the very first thing is that when David ordered this, he ordered it looking at pictures of the model that had either a figured ash look on the top or a figured maple look on the top. And then this one arrived, and as you can see, it's a little bit more closer to like a poplar burl. So there's definitely some burl figurine in this veneer. It is not a genuine top, of course, at this price point. It is just a veneer. One thing that should also be mentioned as far as that goes is, as you can see, there's kind of like a little bit of a layering effect here that gives the impression that this whole piece right here is a top. But if you look closely, you can very clearly see that nope, it's all the same piece of the body. This part was probably just routed out via CNC to make it look like it had a layering effect going on there. It is a rather nice looking piece of ash on both sides that was used for the body. One thing that is slightly concerning to me, it's kind of a nice touch when you see a wood cavity cover that matches the wood of the instrument. However, it feels like the cavity cover itself is unfinished. It's very, very rough to the touch. It doesn't feel like there's any finishing or any sanding that went on with it. I don't know, could have been done a little bit better. It is, however, sitting pretty flush with the body, which means that the cavity itself was recessed. So that is pretty nice. It looks like we've got some heavy-duty bolts to attach the neck to the body that actually are sitting nice in steel washers in there. The joint itself is a little loose. There are some gaps in there, as you can see. It's not horrible, but it's not incredible either. One thing that is a super duper nice touch is that, as you can see, there are some glow in the dark side dots on there. Probably not genuine lumen lay, probably something a little bit more generic, but it's a really nice touch, and as you inspect it, there's not really any tool marks around that, which is a very, very cool touch on such a cheapy instrument. I will say I absolutely fucking detest these wooden knobs on here. They are so super smooth that it's really, really tough to get a good grip on it. You have to really hope that you get a grip on the hole where the hex key is on there for tightening it on. So some other things to mention on the instrument with regards to the electronics, you know, the soldering, it doesn't look fantastic, but it doesn't look horrible. One thing that is really cool about the electronics is this switch. Man, this actually is a pretty heavy-duty three-way toggle switch. Like, I can abuse this thing back and forth. You really don't feel like you're going to break this thing off like some of the cheaper toggle switches do. That, I think, is a really, really cool touch. Moving on to how the instrument plays, how it feels. The neck itself, at 25.5-inch scale and with a C shape, it feels very familiar. It's something that you'll get used to right away. The lightweight of the body is quite nice too. It's definitely something that's not going to fatigue your shoulders so much as you're playing on stage for an hour. The fretwork does leave a little bit to be desired, but what's the number one thing I usually call out is the shit fret ends. This is actually some pretty nice dressing for the price, for the cost of the instrument. I expected this to be super sharp on the end, and that is not the case. The fretboard edge is rolled off a little bit. The fret ends are not exactly rolled off, but they're not sharp. You know what? For a sub $300 instrument, that exceeds expectations quite a bit. Now, where we have a problem with the fretwork is with regards to the leveling itself. We do have a fair amount of buzz going up and down the neck in certain places, some dead spots up here. I have given this thing a proper setup. David told me that he was going to put 10 through 52s on this and set it up for drop D. So that's what it is in currently. I threw a set of Ernie Ball paradigms on here, intonated everything. We'll get to the bridge in a minute, speaking of the intonation. Gave the truss rod a bit of a tweakage, got it so that the neck is pretty much mostly straight with just a little teensy tiny bit of relief. Needless to say, we still have a bit of buzzing going on. Where there's a real problem, though, is when you're playing a lot of times on the E string and to a lesser extent on the B string. If you try to do a bend or a vibrato, you get a bit of resistance on there from less than polished fretwork, is what I would probably say. It's just giving you a lot of pushback when you're trying to do a vibrato, when you're trying to do a bend. It's not so much a problem on lower strings. You know, it's a little bit smoother, but there again, as soon as you get up to like the B string and the E string, especially the E, man, it's just like if you can hear that, it feels almost like, or it sounds rather, almost like you're going up against just a much rougher surface than you are on the lower strings. Going into the truss rod. So I'm going to post a picture in just a second so that you can see, but the truss rod was something I noticed was kind of weird. As you're looking inside this little hole here that you would use to access the truss rod, it looks like the truss rod itself has shifted over to the side so that it's not quite as easily accessible as it ought to be. It doesn't mean that this instrument is unable to be adjusted, but I would express a serious concern that maybe there's other individual instruments from NK, other headless models, that maybe are worse than that. With regards also to the truss rod, it is way the hell down in there. So using a standard hex key or one of those multi-tool sets, you don't really have that great of access in there. It's really tough to get in there. That's kind of a bummer. I literally had to go to Home Depot and get a longer hex key just so that I could tighten this instrument. Don't get me wrong, I'll still get more use out of it later on, but man, that's kind of a bummer that you needed to buy something else in the first place just to even be able to do anything with this. Moving further along with the setup, this is a proprietary bridge design licensed by KD Patent. KD is a company that makes a lot of lesser expensive guitar hardware. You see them on a lot of cheapy instruments that come from like AliExpress and stuff like that, or even some of these cheapy instrument auctions that you find on eBay. This is kind of a weird headless design. I've never seen anything like this. There's kind of like a roller that the strings sit on there. It's kind of reminiscent of a Babbitt's bridge to a certain extent, which is definitely not a bad thing at all. The tuning mechanism, though, is really, really funky because, and I'm going to show a little video here of how you have to change strings. So basically, you feed the string through the hole like you normally would any other tuning machine, but you can't feed it through very far. You have to feed it through just barely past the end of the hole, and then you have to start turning this crank right here. This crank is located on the bridge itself. It sits in there thanks to a magnet that's in there, but you basically have to stick this in the hex end and just kind of turn it around until the string gets proper tension, until the thing is in tune. It's very weird, it's very funky. It is something you can get used to. After a while, I just kind of got into a rhythm with it, you know, using my thumb as an anchor point and just kind of pushing with my finger in either direction. And eventually I was able to kind of get finer tuning done on this thing. It's rough going though. It is not easy. A lot of times these tuners, they kind of rub up against each other because of just how they're sitting in the bridge. There's a little bit of grip on there, but you can't really rotate it using just your fingertips like you would a normal fine tuner. But so yeah, another problem that I had with setting the intonation on this bridge is that one of the saddles, the low saddle right here, I was not able to get properly intonated. It is all the way back as far as it'll go, and at the 12th fret, this 12th fret D note is still sharp compared to the open note. All the rest of the strings I was able to get intonated without issue, but that one, man, that is a huge, major call out on this thing. This is a basic expectation I have of any instrument in every price point. I don't care how cheap it is. No matter how much money you spend on an instrument, you should at least get something that is 100% playable and usable. And the fact that you cannot intonate that saddle of the bridge so that it is perfectly in tune all along the neck, that is unacceptable at any price point. I don't care how cheap of an instrument this is. The fact that it will not let you intonate the last string makes it unusable. Now, before I get into how this instrument sounds, let me also make a quick mention to something else with regards to the bridge. The B string on this particular instrument doesn't exactly rotate super smooth. There's like little notches in it or something that as you're turning it, it tends to fall into. So you just kind of have to be careful to make sure you actually get that string in proper tuning. But it's possible. It feels weird as you're cranking it, that there's like a little bit of resistance and stop-start. So fair warning. On to how this thing sounds. I'm not going to be sugarcoating it at all. This thing sounds like dog shit. These pickups are fucking awful. The Artecsound pickups, whatever they're called, they have a very, very similar look to DiMarzio X2Ns with those two long pull pieces. That being said, they definitely don't even sound anywhere near as good as even those things do. They do have Alnico 5 magnets in them, which gave me hope. The bridge pickup is wound to 16K, the neck to 10K, and they just don't really sound great at all. You get kind of a weird, kind of sort of hi-fi sound out of them that's a little fizzy, and truth be told, I got a serious Adam Jones vibe from, like, as I was playing these things. So they've got a little bit of oomph to them, but as you can tell, there's just a little bit of fizziness in there. I'm using one of my favorite Marshall JCM 900 profiles on the Kemper. I use it for a lot of stuff, actually, and I'm usually able to get a really powerful tone out of it and something that is honestly pretty clear. You know, you drop the gain to about like 5.5 on the Kemper and you multi-track with it, you get some nice clean takes. With this thing, I've got the gain on, well, I've still got it around there, about like, you know, 5.5, 5.6 thereabouts. But man, it just has a lot of hair to it. So it's definitely something that serves a purpose, like you can use it, but for a lot of applications it might be a little too noisy. You know, you certainly couldn't do thrash with it. Just talking about tuning stability, huh? Turn the crank, let's go to where it needs to be. Like I said, you can kind of get into a rhythm with working the crank, and you can get this thing to tune up faster after you get used to it. That doesn't excuse it for being a pain in the ass design, though. So as far as the neck pickup goes, we're kind of in the same boat with that. You know, it just leaves a lot to be desired. It's not nearly as terrible as the bridge pickup. You do have a little bit of that vintage vibe in there, but it's just a little too overwound sounding to make it seriously usable to me. It's still a bit noisy. You lose a lot of articulation in it. Quite frankly, it's just uninspiring, honestly. It's one of those instruments that it's way more inspiring to play on when it's not plugged in. So for anyone that is interested in getting one of these, buyer beware, you're going to need to spend more money on better pickups and upgrade this. Final thought, there again, it's a cheapy instrument. So was I expecting something to be an incredible beast of an instrument that is a joy to play on and sounds absolutely tits? No, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting for a 100% usable instrument though. Whenever you buy an instrument, no matter what the price point, you should always be expecting that. A 100% usable instrument. May not be usable as far as like to your taste, but you can modify it. You can fix things here or there to make it so that it's a little bit more to your taste. With this, especially with regards to that design flaw with that low E string saddle not being able to intonate, well, that expectation wasn't met, I'm afraid. There's a few other things on here. Like I said, I had kind of low expectations that were greatly exceeded, like with the comfort of the fret ends, for example. You know, then again, with regards to the fret leveling, that left a little bit to be desired, etc., etc. There's things all over this instrument that I can wax eloquent about over and over again about how I really love this, I don't really love that, I really love this, I don't really love that. But it really is just something that you need to get your hands on yourself to see where the flaws are, where the opportunities lie for you to make this an awesome instrument through modification, or if it would just be better if you just saved up your money and got something better. It's not a terrible starter instrument by any stretch, but does it have opportunities? Yes. So now you're asking, Arnold, what are you drinking today? Well, from Brewery Teru, from Placenta, California. I know that's not how it's pronounced, but fuck it, when you spell your city name like that, that's how I'm going to say it. So I believe that that's a suburb of Anaheim, but this is their Orchard Vit, which is a 5.7 alcohol by volume wheat beer with fruity notes to it. Let's see. Pours very, very light golden in color with a white head, like any wheat beer would. We do have a little bit of fruity notes in the aroma there. Definitely smells like it's going to be a little bit sour. And it is, but not really a whole hell of a lot. It's very, very faintly in there. A little lemony, a little citrusy, a little grassy. But overall, it's like it supplements the flavor of the wheat beer itself. Slightly dry, slightly carbonated flavor to it as well. Overall, not bad, not incredible though. So that's all I've got. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the comments section below. I can't promise that I'll get to all of them, but I'll do my best. If you dig the band that I'm repping on my shirt, link is in the description below. If you dig the beer that I was drinking, link is in the description below. And if you dig this instrument, link is also in the description below. Take it easy. I'll see you in the next video.